Hello, and welcome to this chat on how to hire the right salesperson. This is a going to be a really useful one if you are looking to grow, but maybe you've got a superstar salesperson, but you're trying to replicate the results. You're the one who sells, and you actually need to pass it off to somebody, or maybe you're just looking for different ways to scale your business in a predictable way. Hopefully, this will be useful information for you. Just a bit about me. I'm Owen. I'm the founder and managing director of Park Row Marketing. Yeah, let's get into it. So, just a bit about us. Who are Park Row Marketing? We are here to have a global positive impact by growing companies and planting trees. We do this through our partner charities, and with our clients each month, we plant a certain amount of trees as we grow their business. Yeah, we do this in an inbound, outbound way. We are available 24/7. We've got a team of 20 of us. We're all charming individuals as a way of growing clients' businesses, really. So this chat just takes you through key considerations when hiring a new salesperson. Importantly, centering it around what works and the customer buying process. Um, Helping your team by kind of setting them up for success, and then actually being able to translate that into something which actually is kind of a common language between everybody, and then ways to filter out those types of people and ways to really know that you have the right person at the start of it. So, just to start though, the buying process itself. So, this is a very basic buying process. Usually, buying processes are, I don't know, 10, 12 stages long. This one I've just done four, just to kind of highlight things. There's the marketing and awareness stage, kind of finding potential customers and educating them on the business. Um, Kind of finding the right times that they may actually be looking and kind of establishing levels of interest, actually getting them to do something about it, like for example, have a quote, have a pitch, have a demo, that kind of thing. And then there's the actual quoting and closing. Now, each one of these four things, just in a simplified one, each one of these four things has a very specific set of skills. Now, what's really important is salespeople are really charming individuals, and salespeople have you've probably known this. Salespeople tend to have a very strong reality of just kind of like, this is the way that things are done. Now, bless them, that's kind of what you want them to do, but also at the same time, when you're making kind of process level decisions, it should be centered more around the way customers buy rather than a specific way to sell something. A good way to find this out, if you don't actually know whether or not the way that you currently sell is the way that your customers buy, take a look at your last 10 customers, or even 100 customers, ideally. Look at things like, how did they find out about you? What was important to them? Why did they say yes? Or take failed leads and say, why did they say no? That kind of thing. What made them suitable? Why do they love you so much? How long did they stay with you? That kind of stuff, basically. Um, that's really useful information about, not a good way to sell, but how your customers actually buy. So when it actually comes to translating this into a job, um, like basically back in the 90s and in the 80s, and actually still now in some industries, you had what was called 360 sales roles, where basically people were handed a phone book, and then the idea was that they themselves, an individual, would do all of this, and they would post it under the idea that they're there to, like, yeah, you're there to manage your own business, kind of thing. And that's the way that they kind of posted it in the sales jobs. But the idea that basically one individual would do all four of these stages, that's not very efficient. It's not very efficient. You're not going to get as many leads, or sales or customers as would expect, because you're leaving one person to do this. What's more, as a manager, it's really hard for you to know whether what somebody's doing is being successful, because any activities on a given day, you're kind of measuring against four different focuses. So the ideal thing here really is to actually focus on one of these stages. So, for example, if you're hiring for a sales job, are they there to, kind of build and kind of establish relationships and find new opportunities? Are they there to actually get people to commit to something like a quote, or are they there to actually quote and close? All of those three things are three separate jobs. You'd actually call these sales development executives, sales development managers, and also just kind of sales managers. Those are three different job roles which you would see, especially in higher value sales and things like that. And then when it comes to actually the once you have uh, once you've got a really clear idea of how customers buy from you, and you have an idea of which stage you're going to be focusing on, say, have KPIs that really focus in on that, specifically around the activities that they are doing, the results that they would be getting out of those activities, and then some kind of way to measure the quality of those activities, which we'll talk about in a bit. Um, but first off, just about this setting them up for success. So we've established that you need a bit of a help. Ideally, you'd have somebody who is covering all of the selling, but like what we mentioned, that would be quite inefficient to have somebody who does all of it. What we are here to do then is also to actually set that person up for success. Like, say, for example, you're looking to hire somebody who can set appointments for you so that you can just focus on the quoting and closing. Um, Now, about 60 to 70% of those results do rely on sales process and the data itself. Salespeople are charming, and I will say that forever. Of course, I'm not biased at all here, but a lot of the success of a salesperson relies on who they are speaking to, because so much can get done in a conversation, but how many of those conversations are they actually having each day? Now, obviously, traditional wisdom would say, well, it's down to them to make their own luck, so to speak. And that is true to an extent. It is true for sales that it's important that salespeople can be held accountable to the job that they're doing. They have a target and they hit that. But also from your perspective, in terms of like a manager here, um, you are relying on that person's willpower that day to do a great job. And bless them, like maybe they're just having a bit of a rough day. And then if their morale takes a dip, how like if you're just relying on them to find contacts, to move them through the process, to set these appointments and then sell, if you're relying them on doing everything themselves, that's going to make that quite difficult for them. So if you are able to actually, as much as possible, supply them with warm leads or decent traffic, or a way to see previous renewal dates or something like that, something which really helps them set decent appointments, is going to make their job a lot easier, and also their results a lot more consistent. Now, to that end, um, another thing of conventional wisdom about sales team is that it's kind of sales teams is that it's a very top down thing. There's one way of selling, and it's a very command control based structure. Our team, that is not how we work. We are an immensely collaborative team. Park Row Marketing as an organization is very flat, and team members have a huge amount of say over how they sell. And one of those rules that we have is that it's totally fine, 100% fine, for somebody to say what isn't working. It's totally fine for them to say what they don't like, or is getting in their way. That's completely fine. The idea is that we want people to do that because we want people to knowledge share. and create ideas as a way of removing obstacles. And people saying what's not working is a wonderful way to remove any obstacles. Um, like, for example, maybe data that they have, maybe a huge amount of the phone numbers are actually wrong, and they have to sift through that data, which takes up their time. Um, that kind of thing can really negatively impact their output. And actually, for the case of having somebody at this stage be able to kind of better refine that data, it would actually dramatically increase the amount of times that they can just call and speak to the right people, get those appointments, and kind of then be able to book the quote for the sales team. So you see what I mean about making sure that when you're setting them up for success in this role that you're going to hire for, let them tell you what's not working, and then um, let the data and the figures tell you whether or not that was a good idea. So this is kind of how we work in Parkrow Marketing. We are a very data driven company. In terms of we measure huge amounts of information about like each team member's performance on a variety of KPIs. Now it's totally fine for people to try new things and have ideas. The data just tells us whether or not that was a good idea, basically. And if it was a good idea, fantastic, everybody does it, and that kind of cycle repeats. If it wasn't a good idea, it's like, okay, cool, let's leave it by the wayside and let's move on. So the idea is that you as a manager here want to harness that idea generation and that creativity. And similarly, make it okay within these different sections for team members to talk to each other as well. You know, if something that if something that the pipeline building team are doing is negatively impacting the appointment setting team, allow that to be shared in between them, and make it a no blame situation. People are just simply stating facts, and it comes from a place of productivity, because this is there to help them, to help them, to help them, to help everybody, basically. um, so yeah, in terms of this, so what we've got now is that we've got a job role which is centered around how your customers buy. You have an idea that is, the actual job role itself is focused from taking one stage to the next. So there's a very clear idea of what you need them to be able to do. You already have a good idea of what kind of the key activities are, and you know that going forward that will be able to continually improve with the right person in the right set. What you then need to do before you actually post your job posting is to then kind of define what success looks like in that. Now, an important thing of this is to have KPIs which focus on a variety of things. We are commonly asked by, kind of people we are quoting for, kind of how many calls per hour do we make? Now, we really don't mind sharing our calls per hour on average this month, or for a particular industry, the particular call length is a certain type of length typically, and things like that. However, calls per hour is not necessarily the best measure of success. In fact, if anything, in some cases, it's entirely irrelevant. Sometimes, when somebody's getting a lot of sales or getting a lot of appointments, the calls per hour tends to go down. So the idea is that you actually want to measure in a variety of factors, based on, based on activities like calls per hour, number of emails sent, because that's kind of just a good measure of activity. But then also to have a measure of focus as well. Like, so when it comes to calls per hour, a good measure of the effectiveness of that is, getting them to note how many conversations they had with decision makers that day. So kind of, yes, I want you to make 100 calls today. I want you to have 20 good pitches, because you know that 20 good pitches will result in a certain amount of quotes sent, which results in a certain amount of closed sales. So sort of thing. And then finally, what you want to do is that you also want to have a measure of quality as well. So you measure the quality of each stage so nobody is able to, shall we say, fudge the results. Because again, if somebody is just there to kind of focus on calls per hour, then and they think that is the measure of success, that's maybe not the best way to kind of focus on it. So the idea is that you have independent ways to verify all of these other things as well, you as a manager. So measuring things like call length, measuring things like call listening, and also things like obviously if somebody's getting a lot of sales, maybe measure the value of those sales as well, because that's a good way to balance out whether or not, because 20 sales might seem great, but it actually is the value of sale they're getting completely off. So it's an important thing to have a variety of measurements. And then finally, which kind of is the central point I'm making here, not all KPIs are equally important. Now, obviously, the whole idea is closed sales and revenue here is the important thing for this particular one. Now, with an appointment setting role, you would want to have different KPIs focused around this. So, yes, number of appointments, and kind of qualifying the appointment itself, but you know you would also want to be able to look at other things like conversations, and also the kind of the number of calls that are being made. But obviously, if somebody has just had a stormer of a day and they've gotten like 20 appointments, um, equally, you don't want to then say, well, your calls per hour was a little low, because, well, that's kind of not really relevant at that point because they've had a stormer of a day. So it's important to define what success looks like, and what you think good looks like. So now we've got a set of KPIs about what a good job looks like, that is centered around a very specific part of the sales process, which is built within a particular sales process, which is going to be good for your business and for your customers. What does a good salesperson look like? Um, this is where you then start to build this into kind of what a good salesperson looks like. And when I say, you kind of, what do they look like, maybe that's actually a bit of a misnomer. Create a profile of what a person needs to be comfortable with, because there's lots of different factors which affect whether or not somebody's going to be good at a particular type of selling. um, it is things like, uh, how comfortable are they being in an office versus being a field salesperson? How comfortable are they going into a conversation where they know relatively little versus going into a conversation where there's actually a whole history there? um, Taking calls that like literally just pop into their ear, or somebody rings a number, versus actually them being able to control the rate of dialing. um, Winning new business versus nurturing relationships, industry specific experience, and also the personality of their sales manager, um, are all different kind of factors which affect things. Now, none of those are objective, and certainly, this is an important thing to look at in that context. The best way that we do this is that in our interviews, what we do is that we have a series of questions which we created based on these kind of criteria. Um, and we ask certain questions, and then we rate whether, kind of how well we feel they answered that question in an objective measure, like scoring from 1 to 10. Try to remove 50% of the questions. Now, this is one of the really important things here, is that you probably um, think of a lot of extra things that you would like, a lot of nice to haves when you are generating this idea. So, actually, what is truly essential? So, for example, because we've been hiring salespeople for the last like 8 years, that actually what we did was we actually looked at what was genuinely essential, and there's actually genuinely six key things that, as long as salespeople do these six things, we are absolutely fine with, and everything else we are flexible on. So, I mean, I'll go into some more examples later, but just to let you know a bit more about ours, our entire team works remotely. And there's a lot of flexibility that we build into the role. So, for example, we really don't mind being flexible on hours. We really don't mind, kind of somebody really chipping in on how they think a good sales approach should be in this particular context. We really don't mind that. In fact, if anything, it's really good to do that. But there are some essential things which we need. Like whatever we do promise, we need them to actually achieve. Like in terms of hours, for example, it's like, okay, well, yeah, let's be flexible on the hours. If you want to work 9 till 12 Monday to Friday, that's fine. But, you need to show up at those times. Also the fact that everyone's remote, they selling remotely is very different than selling within a team, because when you're selling within a team, 20 people in the office are basically saying the same thing as you, versus when you're at home, for example, and you have to kind of motivate yourself as well. And there's a few other things which is really key to us that you know that we had, but there used to be all of these nice to haves. And interestingly, one of those nice to haves was actually previous experience. It was this industry specific experience that we used to think was essential, and it really wasn't. Um, and so, for example, we do ask about industry specific experience, but it really isn't essential in terms of that. And so that's why I just wanted to kind of bring that up about the importance of actually removing questions once you've done making questions as well. So what this could be also done is actually kind of, in addition to the interview stage where you ask these questions and you score them based on 1 to 10, and basically the highest score gets the job. That's kind of the idea. You can also build little tests into the process itself, and this is actually a really good way of defining kind of certain things, because, like, for example, if you asked somebody, you know you know are you good with detail? Do you consider yourself somebody who is, kind of double checks what they do before they send it? Everyone's just going to say yeah to that. Be like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm good at that, because in the abstract, of course you are. So the idea is that what you do is that you actually use your recruitment process as a way of testing somebody. So, for example, asking them to fill out a particular application form can be a very useful way of, for example, kind of seeing how they fare with the forms themselves. Now, this is something that we use internally. Like within our business, just because of the structure of our systems, we have a lot of forms that you just kind of need to fill in, where you kind of take data and you put it into another one. So actually we have added some of these forms into the recruitment process, for example. So that's been a particularly useful one for us, as has this particular phrase. um, See, the thing is that with our particular job role, because everybody works remotely and everything is written down, um, we need the ability for people to be able to communicate concisely in writing, and be able to kind of double check their work in a particular way. So we added this question into the into the into the sales kind of like recruitment kind of process. So it literally just says on the application form, describe your life in 50 words. Now, like some of them, some people literally just go like, like some people just go off on one because like how the hell do you describe your life in 50 words? 50 words is like 4 sentences. Like how do you describe your whole life in 4 sentences? So the idea is that actually some people really do really do kind of take that and make sure that it's concisely written, and then they filter down, and what we actually see is a 50 word kind of concise description of their life. We're not actually kind of wondering about the actual kind of content of it. We're wondering whether or not they can take an incredibly big concept and make it 50 words long. That's what we're looking for. Some people, of course, kind of get off on one, like they start really well, but then they add things and add things and add things, and then actually it's not 50 words. um One of the things that was actually I think like the funniest one that we got from this was somebody saying something like, actually I might even try and find I might even try and find it because it was just ridiculous. It was um what was it? It was like oh yeah, here we go. He said, yeah, describe your life in 50 words. I'm taking life head on with my strengths and skills. Have me on your team or against you. Pick your enemies wisely. Which was just, I mean, I didn't want him on our team after that, but I also didn't want him like against our team because yeah, he sounded like he really like he knows how to hold a grudge. So yeah, stuff like that can be really useful. Um, just remember that whenever you are doing these things, to use them mindfully and keep in mind that kind of any tests need to be objective as well, because with a certain type of test you're going to get, it means that you aren't testing for the perfect person. You're with any test you're testing for somebody that could fit, with could pass that test. So it's kind of having a variety of ways that you can filter out and try new processes and kind of different ways of finding people is really important. And then finally, salespeople talk a big game. They talk a big game, and that is why you want them. But actually putting them to the test, putting them in the moment, is a very big deal. For example, what we do is that again, this is kind of an extension of kind of letting people see what it's like to work with us day to day. What we did was that we actually made a script which it's just like a nothing script. It's just about no particular client in particular, but what it does is that it mimics what is kind of like to work with us day to day. It's a very typical call against a completely made up company, um, and we can actually see what they're like, how they fare with reading that and saying it and trying to say it convincingly. And we're not particularly fussed if they successfully get it or not. But like the idea is that they say that to one of our managers, and whether or not it's successful, basically. There are red herrings in the pitch, basically. There are things that are intentionally wrong to see if they notice it. So, like for example, we want to qualify against particular kind of criteria during the call. Did they notice that but then like when they're calling against like say one of the manager will intentionally give a slightly wrong answer to the question just to see if they notice whether or not they answered not quite right. It doesn't quite fit the qualification, for example. Further things about kind of testing, just like their general attention to detail, is something that's very important to us, uh, because of the because clients are asking us to get the conversation up to a pre-agreed point. We need to make sure that people are able to quickly read something and be able to understand, have they reached that point? And also, more importantly, are they able to do that independently themselves at home? So obviously that is a really important test. So yeah, I hope that was very useful for yourself. I hope that kind of information helps give you an idea of kind of good ways to hire somebody that you can help move that customer buying process along. Just to let you know a bit about us, we do offer a few different ways about how we can help move the sales process along. If you are looking for somebody, we do have charming people who can just outright quote and close. We also have kind of team members who can take the conversations and book appointments. We have people who are able to find out renewal dates, get those initial kind of contacts with companies, get permission for brochures out and things like that, those early stage things. That works especially well for like larger sales. And then also, we have charming people who are available 24/7 to answer customer questions and, generally delight them as well. We also, as parts of our campaigns, we plant trees. We are affiliated with One Tree Planted, the global charity. We have to date planted well over 2,000 trees with them, and it is continuing. It's all included in the price. Clients don't pay anything extra specifically. We just do this as part of it because it's so cost effective. It would be silly for us not to, basically. What's great is that most of the trees are being planted, especially lately in the UK. There's a way that we can select where we pick it. Sometimes we pick other parts of the world, but a lot of the time we're actually doing it in the UK as well. So, just to let you know a bit about us, our pricing is based on kind of particular packages as well. So, it's done on a simple hourly rate. And then if you want us to do any extra hours, we can. And it's just based on, the actual pricing itself is based on the goal of the conversation and, kind of how many hours you want us to do. But just to let you know a bit about us and kind of our promise is that we are a very data driven company. And so we record huge information about who's good at selling what and what our track record is. And so, what we can do is that we can actually, as part of the process, even just openly share with you what we are historically like to work with and what has historically worked, and in terms of hours and results and what success looks like, and specifically who within our team was best at selling on that. And that's one of the things that we can also do as well, is that we can actually kind of get somebody not just who is charming generally, but somebody who actually kind of, for example, if you're within a particular industry, we can find somebody within that industry who has worked with us on different campaigns, who we know has a really good track record in that, and we can share that track record with you. Obviously there are a lot of moving parts, and so it may be different this time because of XYZ, but we always like to openly share historically what we're like to work with, basically. And then continually, kind of on an ongoing basis, we like to be really open and honest about what we're doing. And we have a one working day response promise time as well. But the idea is that in addition to finding you the success now in terms of a lead, a sale, renewal date, we also, we will manage that conversation right up to that point. So any of these callbacks and things like that at the end of any campaign, you would be getting that yourself as well. So like, we would be handing that over to you. So there's a level of long-term value in this. So, kind of any campaigns, once we're done our job with you, we can give you the pipeline that we were working on, so that whoever is succeeding us can can pick up from where we left off, basically. So, yeah, I really hope that helped. I really hope that the information about a bit about what we're like to work with was also useful. We are available 24/7 via web chat at parkrow.marketing. But yeah, thanks very much for coming along today. Have a great weekend.